Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Farmington Board of Selectmen's meeting for Tuesday, February 9th, 2021. Item number 1, pledge allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody, for that. Moving on to item number 2, confirm the appointment of Kenneth A. Charles as police chief. Richard.
Yes, as you all know, we went through a hiring process with a committee and had conducted some interviews, and Mr. Charles came out on top, and I have offered him employment as our police chief. And under Title 30A, Section 2636, subsection 5, the town manager shall appoint, subject to confirmation by the Board of Selectmen, supervise and control the heads of departments under the control of the selectmen. The department is not headed by the town manager. So this is part of your statutory duty, is to confirm my appointment of Mr. Charles, and he's here tonight. You may want to hear a few words of introduction from him before you proceed to the confirmation.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Mr. Davis and Mr. Smith, and of course the rest of the board, I want to thank you for hearing my opportunity to sell myself as a candidate for the police chief position. Having lived here for a number of years, I've grown to love and appreciate what we have to offer in our community. I have a lot of pride in the law enforcement community that we have serving our area. Having a long history of collaboration with Farmington Police Department and its existing staff, I have a lot of respect for who's there, how they operate, and look forward to the opportunity to share the experience and skills that I have, and at the same time offer something that maybe can take the department to just yet another level of professionalism. I really hope that as we move forward, we're increasingly responsive to the community's needs, the community's expectations. I don't think that there's been a more trying time for people to be in the law enforcement profession. Some particular items of interest or priority for me really include identifying, recruiting, bringing in the absolute best that we can have here in the town of Farmington, providing police services. Second would be to retain those employees. I think the thing that would be most disappointing is to lose employees without an opportunity to see them grow. And again, that's for the benefit of the community. No major changes expected. And actually, I'd like to take just a minute to thank, Deputy Chief Shane Cody for filling in for quite an extended period of time in that interim role as interim chief, which of course I know would shift a lot of responsibility to the shift supervisors, Sergeant Hastings, Sergeant Lyman, and then also additional responsibilities to the patrolmen. I think they've done an outstanding job. With all of the, a lot of social strife, a pandemic, staffing shortages, it's just been an unprecedented time, and I think that the department has really performed admirably. So I'm actually quite proud to have this opportunity, and I look forward to working with each of you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions?
I don't have any questions. Just other than just welcome aboard, and we really look forward to working with you.
Appreciate it.
So look forward to the opportunity.
Thank you.
So
Welcome.
Thank you.
Well, I suppose if I don't say anything, you won't think I welcome you. So I too welcome you aboard and wish you the best of luck and success. And hopefully the town of Farmington will enjoy and benefit from your leadership.
Appreciate it. Big shoes to fill when you think of the history and lineage. Thank you, Mr. Fogg.
with that, I'll make the motion that we confirm the appointment of Kenneth A. Charles as police chief.
Second. Third.
Then a motion and a second to confirm the appointment of Kenneth A. Childs as police chief. Any other questions or comments? If not, we're ready for the vote.
Mr. Smith?
Yay.
Mr. Fogg?
Yes.
Mr. Landry?
Yes.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Welcome, Ken.
Much appreciated.
Looking forward to working with you.
Absolutely.
My pleasure.
And I'd also like to thank Shane for filling in. He did a great job filling in why we needed it, and look forward to continuing working with him as well.
Absolutely. And I want you to know that my door is always open anytime. I welcome sitting down with you whenever, for any reason whatsoever. I'm there for you, and I'll be at your back. Got your
Appreciate
six,
that.
as they say.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll move along to item number 3.
You don't have to stay if you don't want to, but
I know my family's waiting. Thank you.
very good. Have a good evening.
Have a good night, Dave.
Drive carefully.
All right, item number 3 is to consider a request to include a resolution to take action on climate pollution on the 2021 annual town meeting warrant.
We had this discussion at the last meeting, and we have a couple of representatives here tonight to talk about it further. Doug Roche, is it?
Royce, as I said.
Roche, and Sherry James. And I did have some correspondence from Ben Ballard earlier, in which he provided a revised version of the warrant article that was presented at the last meeting. You have that in your packet to review. It's a little bit shorter.
You say yeah? In a minute.
Sure.
Let me speak with, let me have you speak with
Yep,
the.
you guys.
In a moment.
I don't know all of you, and I don't know us, so we thought we'd introduce ourselves. I'm Sherry Jenks, and I've been a resident of Farmington for over 45 years. My husband and I worked here. He had a business here. We raised our family here, and I love this community. So I come from a place of being passionate about what's good for the community and an interest in mitigating climate change as it might affect our community. So then, Doug, go ahead.
Well, briefly, my name is Doug Royce. I just want to say I can't imagine a better choice than Ken Charles for the new police chief.
Thank you.
I am a geologist, teach at the university. I'm here because I've got daughters. They ski with Ken's daughters. They're good friends. Because they're concerned about their future. And that's why I'm here. I will, if people have questions about the science, that's my role.
So I've written my presentation in the interest of being brief, so I don't go off on a tangent, which I'm sometimes tempted to do. And we wanted to thank you for the opportunity to come back and continue our conversation about this issue. So I wanted to start with a couple of assumptions. The first being that our community is not immune to the effects of climate change. We are a 4 seasons rural community with industries such as farming and logging and recreation. And these are impacted by the effects of erratic weather patterns, drought, etc. As a state, we are even more vulnerable due to the coastline with warming waters and rising sea levels. The other assumption is that our community, our country, and the global community are in a transition from dependence on fossil fuel-based energy to clean, renewable energy. This is clearly evidenced here in Farmington as we have a huge solar farm going in right down the road, and we have wind farms surrounding our area. So we're not immune to the effects of climate change, and we are in the process of transition to renewable energy. Carbon pricing is one of the proposed strategies to facilitate this transition by reducing carbon emissions, a primary cause of climate change. With 10 different carbon pricing bills set to come before Congress, it is a pretty sure thing that some form of carbon pricing legislation will be adopted. So the question isn't whether carbon pricing is going to be enacted. The question is which carbon pricing bill will be the most effective while protecting those who are most vulnerable to the rising, resulting costs of carbon pricing. The most significant differences in the bills are the fee structure and the designation of the fees collected. The cashback carbon pricing bill is the only bill of the 10 that distributes all of the fees collected minus the 3% administrative cost, which that is in the bill, that it would only be 3%, to all U.S. citizens in the form of monthly dividend checks. This would happen through the IRS system, so it would be very low administrative cost. The mechanism is already in place. A cashback compensation for consumers who will ultimately be impacted by the increased cost to the fossil fuels source companies as they pass those fees down the line to distributors, wholesalers, retailers, etc. It's estimated that the rise in gas at the pump would be about 3 cents per gallon, just to give you a reference of what we're talking about in terms of increased costs for consumers. Other bills being proposed would designate the funds collected for things like infrastructure, job retraining, and renewable energy investment. These are all good intentions, but with much higher administration costs and no compensation for the impact of increased costs to the general public, the consumer. The bill also proposes to start the fee at $15 per metric ton of carbon emissions, with the fee gradually rising over a period of time. The other bills propose a much higher $25 per metric ton fee right at the onset, which would be more of a jolt to the fossil fuel industry and ultimately more of a jolt to the consumers and rising costs. The carbon cashback legislation is supported by economists, scientists, recently the National Chamber of Commerce, and some of the fossil fuel industry. And we see it as the best option for our community. There was a question, I guess, at the last meeting about whether businesses would be eligible for dividends. And the answer to that is no. The reason for that is that it's kind of basic economics that as costs rise down the chain, the fossil fuel industry to distributors, to wholesalers, to retailers, it'll be passed on to the consumer. So it's the consumer we are concerned about. It's the general public, and particularly those that are vulnerable to increases in their budgets. So that's why it's not proposed to have a dividend go to businesses. And I guess another way to look at that too is that where do you draw the line? You know, I don't think Amazon needs a monthly dividend from carbon pricing, but certainly individuals in communities and rural communities like ours will need the money. They always need the money. There's another issue that we wanted to make sure that you understand, that we understand, and that is that we will be responsible for educating the community about this issue. It's not a simple issue to wrap our heads around, but we have lots of resources. There are many towns in the state, I know it's over 40, it might be over 50 at this point, that are looking at having this on their town meeting agendas. It's already been done in New Hampshire, so we have lots of resources to pull for education and opportunities for collaboration with other communities about that. We know that if it's agreed to put on to have it put up for a vote at the town meeting, that it's our responsibility to educate the public about it. And we just also wanted to clarify that what we're asking is simply to have this put on the town agenda so that the community has an opportunity to express their support for this particular legislation through a collective voice, which will be a more impressive and hopefully a larger voice than when we all do it as individuals. We would ask that the community has an opportunity to have their voice heard at the federal level, because we can do a lot in our community around energy conservation and all of that, and the state can do a lot, but if we don't have good federal legislation addressing the climate change issue, then it's not going to be as effective. And this is an opportunity for us to have a voice in that.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Do you have anything to add?
I have one. The legislature reacting to a letter from the town, in my mind, is black ink on white paper. They may react to it and they may not. A statewide referendum that you got signatures on, that is a viable, that's a number. That's something that they can see. There's a tremendous amount of support out there for it. I'm just concerned that a letter saying that we support it, I just don't see that that would get it done. And secondly, you will have your work cut out for you, which I'm sure you're willing to do that. I'm not sure what percentage of the town's population is greatly concerned about this issue and aware of it. If you ask my personal opinion, I can certainly give it, but I'm trying to speak as a selectman looking to give it to the town. And I don't really have a big reason not to, but I don't have a real big reason to either. I just don't think that's the route to go. I know what you want to accomplish, and we all want to accomplish exactly what it is you're trying to do. It just doesn't seem the avenue to get there. That's just my thoughts.
Okay, so I have two responses to that. To the first, about the avenue, the idea is for the town to have a collective voice that would be transferred through the selectmen to our representatives in Congress. So it's not a letter that's going to go to Washington. It's going to go to our 2 senators, our 2 representatives, our governor, and I believe it says our state legislators as well. It's our opportunity to express to them what we would like them to support in Washington. So it's no different really than when I write a letter to Susan Collins or Angus King or whoever, when I know that there's a piece of federal legislation that I feel I want him or her to know that I support, and I wish that they would support. So that's the avenue. And then as far as the bringing up the awareness and the education in the community, this is a wonderful opportunity to have that conversation.
I may have to have you repeat that. Your first thing you would do is send a letter signed by the selectmen representing the town, is that correct?
The way the resolution reads, and I think it says
Record of the vote. It's the record of the vote. So we just
So it says the record of the vote approving this article, assuming that it would be approved at the town meeting, shall be transmitted by written notice to Farmington's state legislators, members of Congress, the governor of Maine, and the president of the United States by the Board of Selectmen within 30 days of the vote.
I asked a question, but I think I knew the answer, but yes, I understand.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
I have a question. How is a vote going to take place at this year's town meeting if it presumably would be online? How does that work?
it'll be about a referendum ballot
This-
at the voting booth.
Right.
Oh, okay.
You know, it won't be online. It
Right.
will be in person.
Yeah, on Middle Street.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
only be a referendum, it won't be a traditional town meeting.
Can I just try to clarify what Sherry's saying?
Yeah, go ahead.
The science is clear, and we need to start someplace with the policy. Basically, form our opinions from research and listening to people we view as smart people. I tend to listen to James Hansen. He's the well-known father of climate science. He's a pretty smart guy. He predicted an amazing number of things back in the 80s based on hardly any data at all. And pretty much all of them have come true. So he's a smart guy on the science front. And he's also become very passionate about doing something politically. He testified to Congress in 1988, and he's been intermittently active, but he has a very strong opinion on that this approach is the only one that's going to work, because it's the only one that all sides, political sides, are going to buy. He wants to see the money go to the public and bypass the government. He does not trust the government with all that money. He wants to see it go straight to the pocketbook of people like us. It's actually the brainchild of people like George Shultz, who just died a couple days ago. He was helped Bush and Reagan administrations. So respected financial people are the people who came up with this idea. And it's gonna help the poor guy. The wealthy are gonna do fine through all this. They will end up paying a little bit more, but the way it works, the little guy is gonna make off a little better than the rich end of the spectrum. So a lot of smart people are behind this, and we got to start someplace, and people need to start learning about what the choices are. And I think all we're doing is asking for a chance to have people in town learn about it and decide if they like it or not. And if they like it, and it's a majority vote, then there'd be a letter sent to people higher up. That's my understanding.
Another objective of the dividend is that for folks who don't necessarily need the dividend in order to help their budget as a result of the increased costs, that they could in turn use the money to perhaps invest in more efficient cars or heating mechanisms, whether it's heat pumps or electric cars. So that's another objective of this, that it would put money in the hands of people who could make better decisions in terms of their investments in climate.
Bottom line is, what we're really looking here tonight at is an opportunity to put this question on the ballot to the residents of Farmington. If it's approved by those residents, then the board will send a letter to me.
You?
To me, yeah. But I think the real challenge is going to be for you to educate people about what it means. In my experience in the past few years, anytime you say tax, you get shot at. You know, it's not pretty. In my last campaign, I was really, people were hammering on me. Well, you said you liked to tax. It's not what I said, but you know, and that's going to be your challenge. And I don't have a problem myself letting the citizens of Farmington vote on this. I think you're gonna have a hard time, especially this year with no town meeting, where you don't have a box to stand on to sell your point, but nothing comes easy. It's gonna be a challenge.
We're ready to meet the challenge.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I think the wording is a little bit misleading when it says that all of the money would be rebated. It doesn't talk about that 3% administrative cost, which could be considerable. If we were going to do this, and I'm not speaking for the board, would you object to removing the term all? Or put in minus, the minus 3% administrative cost, which complicates.
Yeah, that would be fine. I agree with you. That would be fine.
Thank you.
I was looking at this, at the one carbon bill that we were presented, and and I might be missing it, but I don't see on here anywhere where it says we're gonna get our 97% back. Where does that number come from? Is that just a number that you're hoping for, or is that, because I mean, that's a big number, and I'm sorry, I don't trust the government to do anything for 3%.
Okay, if you read the particular bill, it's HR 763. It's a House bill. It does designate that only 3%.
Okay, I just don't, we have a copy of it, I have a copy of it.
What I've given them is a summary of the bill, and just a brief summary. Of course, with any of these bills, you have to dig into the whole thing to get all the details on it. And they're multiple pages long. I haven't read the entire bill. I don't know the length of it. Maybe you do.
I know it's pretty long.
Yeah, most of them,
I've been
yeah.
through it. I certainly can't quote the bill to you.
Right, no, I wouldn't ask you to, I've seen bills before.
Yeah,
The
but I
languages.
know that it's designated that it would only be 3%. And I don't believe any of the other bills, I may be wrong about this, but I don't believe any of the other bills even say what percent would be administrative costs. But it's clear that the designations that they outline for those bills would require a lot more administration.
Right. I know, since we've talked about this 2 weeks ago, I can actually say I think this has probably generated the most conversation to me since I've been a selectman, which I find kind of humorous, but, and I honestly, most people are saying they're not for it. They don't want another tax. As soon as they hear that word tax, they just don't want it. And like myself, they don't think the government will do anything for that low of a percentage.
So it'll be an uphill battle for us.
Yeah, it will be, and I really think it will be.
So I'm curious, where does, so somehow fee gets translated to tax. I say fee and the public hears tax.
Well, I think they're seeing it where it was presented to us, that it's all of this stuff is gonna be taken right down, and at the end of the day, the consumer will be paying for all of this. And hopefully we can get it back. It was presented to, I guess it was, I don't know if it was just our words or it's been used as a tax, so, as just a carbon tax is what it was presented as.
So the situation now is all that money, a lot of it is going to Exxon. So as a concrete example, I have somebody I collaborate with who was a geologist who worked for Exxon. He's been able to retire at age 60. The guy's affluent. So that's what's going to happen if we don't do anything. Exxon just gets more and more money. Whereas this policy, let's that money in our pocketbook so that we can make choices to, well, in our case, we had a wood stove 15 years ago from Northern Lights. It was one of the best investments ever, and it cut our oil down 50%. But we still burn 500 gallons of oil a year, and I would love to have rooftop solar and heat pump. That's the smartest way to go these days. But oil's too cheap, and I don't want to take the money out. So even though I'm one of the strongest supporters of doing something about climate change, I can't. It's the pocketbook thing. So if I was getting a dividend, and also if the price of oil was going up, it'd make it a lot easier to invest in solar panels and heat pump and get rid of the oil burn. But that's what's going to happen eventually. The price of oil is just going to go up.
Right. I don't know. Anybody
I have an off-the-wall thought, and it's not really off the wall, but I don't hear it presented. I did hear you say that if I believe that the emissions have to be controlled, and the only way to cut down on them perhaps is this fee, and kind of stick it to them a little bit, and it will become disadvantaged. It'll be a problem for the companies providing with the fossil fuels. They will be paying out quite a chunk of money. Matter of fact, I read in the paper that it was $1.5 trillion over 10 years. That's the number I read. So what I did is I took that divided by 10. You got 0.15 trillion per year. And if you divide that by our population, it's about 328 million. That's about $450 a year that we would get. But if you divide that 0.15 trillion by 50 and give that amount to each state, I don't share your discomfort with the government that if our governor receives a chunk of money, which is 20-some billion, double or triple our current budget, can do some wonderful things with it as far as infrastructure, schools, you name it. But it would everybody would benefit greatly from that, but not money in your pocketbook. And it will not help the gas prices going up and fuel oil going up. But instead of everybody in Maine getting $30 a month, you would have a chunk of money to improve life in the state of Maine for everybody. That's what I'd like to see written. I would jump all over that. And I think that our governor, receiving that bunch of money, they only have to disperse it 50 times instead of 328 million times. Something's not gonna go right in there someplace. I don't trust the government either, but that's what I would.
Yeah,
Reality to me, that would make much more sense. This is, it just, now I'm doing what I said I wasn't gonna do, is just give you my opinion. I know what's before us, and what we have to decide, and let the people decide. I guess that's what you're asking us to do.
So here's one scenario. This gets shot down this year, and your idea gets up there next year, and people love it and vote for it. I don't know.
Well, that could be.
The idea is to get people involved and thinking about this. I was going to say, I read in the paper this morning that British Petroleum outbid everybody else on a offshore wind project in England. So they're getting out of one way to make money and into the big time renewables. So that maintains the status quo.
It is coming. GM is moving to all electric, what, by 35, was it?
Yeah.
No more. I would move the question to see if the citizens of the town of Farmington would like us to go ahead with this type of a letter?
There's been a motion.
I didn't quite hear all.
I just made a motion to put it on the warrant to let the citizens of the town of Farmington vote.
Why are you looking at me? I'll second that.
There's been a motion and a second to put the resolution to take action on climate pollution on the 2021 annual town meeting warrant. Any more questions or comments from the board? No? If not, we're ready for a vote.
Mr. Smith?
Nay.
Mr. Fogg?
Yes.
Mr. Landry?
Yes.
Passes 2-1. Thank you, guys. I don't envy you.
Well, thank you very much. And,
Thank you very much.
I'm very interested in your idea, Mr. Fogg.
Less paperwork that way tonight.
Move along to item number 4. Consider the application of David Ballard to serve a 1-year term as an alternate member on the zoning board. Richard?
You have Mr. Ballard's application in front of you. He expressed interest in a number of boards, so I did get in, and some of them are conflict with others, but I did get him to narrow his interest down to this one position, the zoning board alternate member.
Nice. He's a student.
Yes, and also fire department member.
Oh, very nice.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Very nice. Okay, I know what he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good deal.
So moved.
Second?
Been a motion and a second to accept David Ballard to serve a 1-year term as an alternate member on the zoning board. So the only thing I've got to say is thank you and we look forward to seeing you.
It's good to see somebody young.
Absolutely. So, but just looking at these boards too, our boards are actually in pretty good shape overall. Our membership is pretty good. Okay, I rambled.
Okay, Mr. Smith?
Yay.
Mr. Fogg?
Yes.
Mr. Landry?
Yes.
All right, unanimous. Item number 5, to approve the minutes of February 4th, 2021.
So moved.
Second. Been a motion and a second to approve the minutes of February 4th, 2021.
Mr. Smith?
Yay.
Mr. Fogg?
Yes.
Mr. Landry?
Yes.
All right. Item number 6, to discuss other business. Richard? Anything?
No, I don't have anything.
No.
Looking at the secretary's book, I do not see that I signed the minutes for January 26th.
You weren't here?
I wasn't here, but they were approved.
Yes. Yes, they were approved.
Knowing that, I'll be signing it.
Okay.
We'll be trying to run stuff by me.
Wow. Get it pretty early for that, looks like. Scott, you got anything?
Just what I discussed with Richard this morning about, we ought to have the landfill people up here to talk to us at some point. I was really impressed when I talked with them, and I think they've got some good ideas. I think we should all hear what they got.
I did send you an email regarding your question that you had about the dumpster usage, so take a look at that.
I will, yeah. But no, I really think those are young fellows.
Young
Those
fellas.
gentlemen are doing a good job, and they really have our best at heart.
Hearing lots of good comments about their work.
Yeah, I am as well. I don't really have anything. I did get my first COVID shot today. I'm excited about that. I'm ready to go home and go to bed.
Your arm sore?
Very. But other than that, I didn't feel the shot.
Yeah.
Felt pretty good. Overall, I just got tired about 2 hours ago. So,
Feels good to get it, though.
yes, it does. It does. Although I don't know if Steve feels that way right now.
Yeah,
Did he get one?
He did.
Knock him out?
Yes.
the second shot.
He got a second shot.
Oh, that's the one that,
Yeah, that's the one we all,
Yeah.
none of us want. So,
that's the one that fights it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So. All right, that's all I've got.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn? No questions or comments?
Mr. Smith?
Yay.
Mr. Fogg?
Yes.
Mr. Landry?
Yes.
Thank you, folks. Have a good evening.